Welcome to Let's Relax module of the Python desktop application development course on Pluralsight. My name is Bo Milanovic. Yes, this title is intentional. In the previous module we saw how we can build a functioning application in less than 70 lines of code, but I'm sure that at one point you raised your eyebrows. For example, when I was explaining the setText method on QLineEdit, I'm guessing some of you had a reaction of along the lines, "Oh, wow, Bo, you're telling us that now?" Well, in this module, we'll sail through. I'm going to go back to what I call advanced basics. In short, I'll explain some commonly used methods on some commonly used QWidgets, such as the ones we've seen already, like QLineEdit and QLabel, but also other ones that we haven't seen in action just yet. QComboBox for one, which is a drop-down selector, and QCheckbox, which is a checkbox. So let's sit back, relax, and start off with our good old friend, the QLineEdit. I've created a new file called QWidgetsDemo, and this is just the same old basic structure of our code, but you can see here that I've added the QLineEdit and one QPush button with the text of close that's going to close the application. You also see that I'm using the vertical box layout, and I'm also manually setting the focus on the entire application. Now, we've already seen the setText, the setPlaceholderText, and the text methods, but let's remind ourselves what they do before we move on. To set the text of a QLineEdit, we use the setText method and pass a string as an argument, like so. LineEdit.setText. Let's say hello Pluralsight. And if I run the application, and remember, the first time you run a new file in the same project, you have to right-click here, hit Run QWidgetDemo, and we can see that this hello Pluralsight is displayed in our QLineEdit. To grab the text currently displayed in the QLineEdit, we just call a text method. And in fact, I'm going to print this manually set hello Pluralsight message to the Python console below. Well, let's create a new variable called text that will store the text we have in our QLineEdit and print it to the console. Now if I run the application, we can see that hello Pluralsight appears in our QLineEdit, but also down below in the Python console as well. Finally, if we want to set the placeholder text, and remember that's the grayish text, we use the setPlaceholderText and also pass a string as an argument. So I'm just going to get rid of this setText call for now and replace it with setPlaceholderText. And let's put something meaningful such as enter username. Now remember that setPlaceholderText is not the actual text of the QLineEdit. It's just something like a descriptor. Let's see what happens when I set this placeholder text and I try to print the text to the console. If I run the application, you see that this grayish enter username does show up. However, down below in our Python console there's nothing. That's because this is not text. This is just a descriptor. Okay, well, we've seen all those in the previous module. Now let's explore some other cool things that QLineEdit ships with. There is a handy method available to us if we want to select all text in the QLineEdit. First of all, I need to replace this placeholder text with the setText, and also probably change this back to hello Pluralsight. But in order for this method to work, one of the things I need to do is uncomment out this setFocus, because otherwise we'll be stealing focus from our QLineEdit and setting it on our application. It is very simple to select the entire text in the QLineEdit. We just call lineEdit.selectAll. Very Pythonic. We run the application. You can see that the entire text has been selected. We can also set the text as read only and therefore disallow editing. Let's first get rid of this select all. And here I'm just going to say lineEdit.set read only, And this method takes a boolean as an argument. Obviously, if we pass true, it's going to set this QLineEdit to a read-only mode. I run the application. You can see that I can't really type anything here, and I'm pressing my keyboard keys right now, and there's nothing I can do. Finally, and this is a nifty one, we can also make our QLineEdit behave like a password field, where it will replace the characters we type with the asterisk. We get rid of this read only. And let's actually get rid of this set text as well. And all of these. The way to accomplish this is by setting the echo mode of our QLineEdit. And this is very simple as well. LineEdit.set echo mode QLineEdit.password. Now let's run the application. And I'm going to type some text. Hello, world site. You can see that this looks like a password field. There. Those are just some useful methods we have in the QLineEdit. There are many more, but they're out of scope of this video. Same old code, but here I have a QLabel instead of the QLineEdit. And we've used QLabels before, but let's familiarize ourselves with it a bit more. In our earlier videos, when we were creating an instance of our QLabel, we'd set its text by passing the string to its constructor method. Or in other words, we'd put the text we want to be displayed in the parentheses right here. And that's fine. But there's another way to do that, and it can be done with, yes, you guessed it, the setText method. So let's get rid of this text here, and instead just call label.setText, type, let's say hello world this time. If I run the application, we have our QLabel with the hello world text in it. Of course, if we wanted to grab the current text in the QLabel, we'd just call the text method, same as with QLineEdit. But what's interesting about this QLabels version of setText is that it can take HTML for its text formatting. Yes, Qt actually really likes HTML and CSS as well, which I'm sure will make lots of people happy. So if we want to make our text bold, we just add the HTML bold tags. Let's run the application. And we can see that our hello world is now bold. Now, there are other ways to make the text bold, but we'll stick to HTML for now. QLabel does not really offer that many methods, but it is actually very versatile. As you saw, it can contain both plain and rich text, formatted text, but it can also contain a picture or even a movie, a film, a clip, whatever. But those are slightly more advanced functions. Now we're getting into some new stuff here, and in this video we'll discuss the Q checkbox, which, as you probably assume, is a checkbox. The Q checkbox doesn't really come with that many methods, but it comes with all the stuff you need. I already have it created here, and as you might assume, it also has the setText method that is going to set its text, same as with QLabel and QLineEdit. But let's run the application and see what this checkbox looks like. Now obviously it's just a standard issue checkbox that you've probably seen a billion times on your computer screen. So let's play with it a little bit. By default, as you've just seen, the Q checkbox is unchecked. So to set it as checked, we can just call checkbox.setCheck. And then we pass a boolean as our argument. Obviously it can be true or false. So if we set it to true and then run the application, we can see that our checkbox is now checked. Now obviously we want to have the ability to see if the checkbox is checked or not. And let's have some fun here. When you check or uncheck the checkbox, lots of checks there, it's going to fire an event called stateChanged. Let's create a handler for that event in which we'll see whether our checkbox is checked or not. Obviously, first we need to get rid of this, but we also need to make our Q checkbox an instance-wide variable. And here's a neat little trick. In PyCharm, if you hold Alt key on your keyboard and you just keep clicking your cursor, it's going to allow you to type in multiple places at once. So I'm just going to do this. Obviously, I had my cursor here as well. Get rid of that. Now let's create a handler, which is going to be our own custom method, and we'll call this method selected. In this method, we're just going to see if our checkbox is checked or not. So if I call if self.checkbox.isChecked, this is the method that we use to make sure and see if our checkbox is checked or not. And if it is, it's going to return true, so this if will evaluate, and if not, it's going to return false. In this case, let's just print yay, and otherwise we'll print no with a sad face. Now let's connect the state change event to this handler. self.checkbox.stateChanged.connect self.selected. And if we run our application now, watch what happens with the Python console as I'm checking this and unchecking it. You can see that yay shows up, and when I uncheck it, no shows up as well. So here we've seen the event that the QCheckbox emits or fires every time you uncheck it or check it, every time you click it. And we've also seen the method on how we can see and make sure whether our checkbox is checked or not. Another UI element that you will likely use often is the QCombo box, which is a drop-down box that you've probably seen many times. You can see that I've created an instance of it already, but also notice that I have this selected method at the bottom, which is going to be our event handler, and we'll get to that in a second. However, right now our QCombo box is empty, so let's add some items to it. We can add items to a combo box by calling the addItem method, like so. Add item, and then we pass a string as an argument. Let's call this item 1. Now let's add 2 more items, so I'm just going to copy paste this code. And this item 2 and item 3. And if we run the application, we see our drop down, and we see our 3 items are there, just as we told them to be. Now, there is a shorter way for us to add items, and this is especially useful if you have lots of items to add to your QCombo box. Instead of using addItem method, we can use addItems with an S at the end. And this method takes a list of strings as an argument. So we can pass item 1, item 2, and finally item 3. If I run the application now, you see that we have the same results as the ones we had before. Obviously, we also want to see what is currently selected, and in that respect, we can check both for the text that's currently selected, but also the index of that current selection, or the position of the item that is selected in the combo box. As such, anytime we change the selection in our combo box, there's going to be an event called currentIndexChanged that is fired. So let's connect that event to our handler here at the bottom. I'll just say self.combobox.currentIndexChanged.connect self.selected. Get rid of the parentheses at the end. And in our selected method, we're going to check and see what is the currently selected text and also what is the currently selected index. Let's create 2 variables. The first one will be called currentText, and to obtain it we just call self.combobox.currentText, and we'll also have the current index. To get that, as you might assume, we call the current index. Now, since this returns an integer, I'm going to wrap this with a string so that I can convert it to a string, because we're going to print it both in one line. Let's print it to the Python console. We'll say current text at the index current index. Now, if I run the application, nothing happens. But why? Well, it doesn't happen because the current index has not been changed yet. The application has just initialized. If I change the current index and select, for example, item 2, we see that it says item 2 at index 1. Indices are 0 based, just like lists. So actually the first element in the dropdown, which in this case would be item 1, is at index number 0. Item 3 respectively would be an index number 2. I hope that you enjoyed this little trip down the memory lane. In this module, we kind of went back and revisited some of the methods that commonly used Q widgets or UI elements have. And if you look at it, they all make sense. To set the text on a Q label, call a setText method. To add an item to a Q combo box, call an addItem method. This is also one of the main reasons why I like Python and Qt. It just all seems to make perfect sense. And I hope it also makes sense to you.